Hello, everyone. Happy Friday. Welcome to today's Insights Tech Showcase on data analysis and synthesis. Before I hand it on over to Lenny, I just want to remind you about the chat and the Q&A boxes. First, we've got that chat box. Feel free to let us know where you're tuning in from. And then, of course, we have that Q&A box. If you have any questions, you can drop them there, and we'll try our best to get to questions at the end of every session. But with that, Lenny, I'll hand it on over to you.
Thanks. And hi, everybody. Thanks for joining this edition of the Insights Tech Showcases. If you are new to this, my goal here is to give you an overview of the topic as kind of a buyer's guide. So things to think about, understand what's in play in terms of impacting buying decision-making from a technology standpoint to help set the stage. So as you're listening to the presenters, you can have kind of the development of a question set that you can take as you assess the fit for your needs. So today we're going to be talking about data analysis and synthesis technology. And I will tell you right up front, this is a needle that is moving consistently, primarily because of the impact of AI. So we've tried to boil it down into some key things that we think are pretty consistent no matter what. But if there is one area that AI is transformative, maybe even more than any others, it is this arena. It really just changes the form factor. It changes how we engage. It changes underlying technology. So we're going to give some foundational information, but know that literally tomorrow there could be some release from one of the big tech companies that is rapidly integrated into other suppliers that are focused on our space that could change a lot of these components, particularly the form factor. So just wanted to put that heads up out there. But let's dive in. And the slide is transitioning very slowly. There we go. Hopefully that'll happen faster going forward. As I mentioned, AI is kind of the great equalizer in terms of accessibility to data. It's just one of the things that it does incredibly well is it synthesizes information, both structured and unstructured, although it's actually better with unstructured today in many ways. And it democratizes it. And we've been seeing that trend happen for a very long time. Let's call it the data enlightenment. There are many, many tools out there that look at different aspects of a business, all the way from competitive intelligence to supply chain to traditional insights to broader data analytics. And the tools just get better and better and make them more accessible to many people. Anybody can benefit from this. There are lots of opportunities for many folks to engage. There's lots of new data sets that are coming together, either whether via AI or externally through other sites. And there's just tons and tons of potential, but there are also some dangers, particularly as we're still in this pioneering aspect of AI in terms of the analysis. So there is definitely a focus on kind of find the balance between our tried and true approaches that are focused fundamentally on math and statistical analysis, while the AI solutions are brought online more effectively to enable a better user experience, a more dynamic user experience, but without the risk of hallucination. And that is still occurring for sure. And based upon your role, there are different solutions that can address different needs. If you are a marketer or brand manager, you certainly want access to data, but they're not data jockeys per se. So they're looking for more intuitive interfaces and more automated storytelling. They want to get to the output versus the inputs. Business leaders and executives, same thing. They want to know that it's right. They want to know that it's trustworthy. They're looking for real-time, action-oriented analytics so they can take actions to be able to pivot the business as needed. Let's say if there's a crisis around brand for some reason. So definitely a different use case. Data scientists obviously are looking more for foundational information. They want to make sure they're not wasting time with data wrangling, but can get to the data itself. Obviously, privacy is a concern for them. They are looking for integration across multiple data sources so they can create new models. UX, CX researchers, it's really around speed to insight. How do we incorporate qualitative. And we've done a really good job with that in the first round of AI adoption. That is one of the things that just did really well, was the analysis of unstructured data. We already were on that trajectory from text analytics, social media analytics, all those things were pushing us in that direction. AI took that and made it even more easy to use. So we're kind of in a golden age right now where we can have the best of all three worlds: foundational quantitative analysis, the integration of qualitative analysis of unstructured data at scale, and AI to change the process to get to the story faster. So a lot of the companies you're going to see here are pioneering that. And that can speak to a lot of the needs of each of these constituency groups. So there's a lot of different categories and types. Obviously, what we would call frontline insights and experience tools, that's market research, survey analysis, qualitative data analysis, customer experience, social media, web analytics. Those all fall under the insights organization. But then there's certainly much more technical components that we touch on, but are distinct and kind of adjacent: business intelligence, data visualization, advanced analytics, data science, data warehousing, big data, data integration. And it's important to recognize where you fit from a use case standpoint in defining the appropriate tools, and where those tools fit into an overall organizational imperative, excuse me, on unlocking more value from data via data synthesis across the board. So some of the strengths and challenges for market research, typically we reach large audiences. We're focused on statistical rigor. We are looking at scalable solutions, but we don't always get to the why. So some of the deeper issues that we can surface within qual, of course, there's response biases, there's low participation rates. We may over-survey the audience, which certainly many folks do, maybe particularly in the CX world. Within qualitative data, again, that is good at getting to the why, and we can code that, and there's ways to make unstructured data analytically focused for structured. But traditionally, it's required some specialized skill sets and time. Again, that is being solved today. It is more interpretive than definitive. Again, as we're getting to this place where the convergence of qualitative at quantitative scale is happening, and a lot of the solutions are leaning into that approach, where the scale becomes a negligible issue in terms of the scalability of the data sets, regardless of whether it is structured or unstructured. So that's pretty cool. And of course, for customer experience, social media, that's great. Real-time feedback. It can be very actionable, embedded into operational procedures in the organization, but it is very high volume. It often can get siloed instead of being integrated in effectively. There's privacy issues to be dealt with. So there's a lot of gives and takes in how we've traditionally have dealt with these things and how we think about it going forward. So there's strengths and weaknesses as well, or challenges in the technical approaches that we have taken for these things. And I'm not going to go through all of this. You're going to get a copy of the slides. But as we think about these big buckets of business intelligence and data visualization, they've had great strengths for their specific use cases, but they have not always been very effective for frontline research. Advanced analytics and data science, same thing. Very sophisticated, really cool stuff. You think things like Python and R, but they required a lot of expertise, and data warehousing, big data, data integration. Those are big honking enterprise level issues that can be very complex. So the goal here is to make sure that we're finding the right solution for your role and your business use case, while allowing for the assumption of where these tools fit into a larger stack of solutions, so that organizationally we're not dealing with multiple solutions for all of these things, but instead are creating an interlocking group of tools that are collaborative and allow every organization and the key stakeholders to be able to address their needs effectively, if not all in one place, at least through a series of connective tissue. So I was just talked about, these are things you need to just think about. data connectivity and integration, data prep and enrichment, analytical techniques and modeling. Which ones are you focusing on? Visualization and dashboarding, storytelling, getting the information out so it can be used, and how you're future-proofing to make sure that we're utilizing AI and natural language. Our sense is that today, everything is going to be centered fundamentally around AI. And we are still early in the adoption curve, but the imperative is simply there. We see the process efficiencies, we see the cost efficiencies, and it is a safe assumption that as we focus on this topic going forward, it is going to be a rapid evolution of different elements of AI, including this new buzz topic of agents, which specific aspects of AI doing very specific functions collaboratively. That is what the future is today. It is already shaping up. There's enough investment at this point, literally trillions of dollars into this, that's just the way it's going to go. So fighting that is probably a losing battle, as the Borg would say. The resistance is futile. So I would encourage everybody to think about this 6, 12, 18-month scenario in strategic planning of how these tools fit, with the assumption that this is going to be a rapidly evolving situation. We can't fight the accessibility component of this. We mentioned in the beginning this democratization, and you're going to see examples of that. Not only does AI changes the form factor, right? To go into a conversational chat to describe what you want versus a GUI interface of needing to click and combine and do those things really is transformational. It certainly comes with risk. You need to be able to precisely say, here is what I am looking for. I'm looking for a chart that describes the key media habits of this specific population that you know is housed within the data. So it's a different it's a different skill set. It's far more cognitive and descriptive than it is mechanistic in terms of how we are looking at crosstabs and pulling data and combining that. So realize that there is a new skill set that we have to develop as researchers to utilize these tools effectively. Doesn't mean that we abandon the more of the traditional ways that we have done things, but we do have access to a new way that can create some real efficiencies. So this is probably the biggest thing that has been the sea change now, and that is kind of the next frontiers, the seamless integration of disparate data sources. I routinely now will load up multiple data sources. Let's say I'm working with a client and I want to understand some strategic element of their market. And one of the first stops for me personally, I will go to Perplexity because I think it's really good for this, and just myself without a specific analytical tool, and we'll do some foundational research to understand, what does McKinsey say about this, right? What reports are available, whatever the case may be, loaded in with some of my own data. So let's say occasionally survey data, often grit reports, and start utilizing that tool to synthesize these disparate data sources, to look for commonalities, to create a thematic overview. That starts with things that I trust. I do not particularly, there's still hallucinations that occur within other platforms. So I don't necessarily do that with some of the broader public LLMs. I'm very focused on things that I know are good and right and quality, which is why we as researchers will increasingly still utilize this combination of, primary research combined with some secondary sources that we trust to broaden our perspective on things. And AI just makes that super easy, while also making sure that we are very aware of privacy and IP protection. I'm not willing to put things that I don't, that I'm concerned about privacy or IP into AI developed by countries that may not necessarily share that perspective. So I do like having a default account myself that I know is centered around just around me, that's not just feeding into the beast publicly. And as you're engaging with specific platforms like you're about to see, those aren't such big issues because there's usually firewalls that are built in versus using the public platforms where you may not have those protections. So be conscious of that. The cool thing is that it really does enable decision activation. This entire category, right? That is what data is for. We don't collect data for the sake of collecting data. We collect data to help guide a decision. And anything that helps us get to that decision from a quality data source in a faster, more efficient way and allows for deeper engagement and understanding, in my book, I think that's nirvana, right? That is a good thing. And that is the guiding motivation behind all of the solutions we are getting to. It is, bridging data literacy. It's teaching people about the value of this information and how it can drive decision making. It's certainly expands the use cases for qualitative. We get deeper, not just more shallow. It is real time. It can be integrated into workflows in real time, and it allows for now incorporating video, for instance. We are in a world now where you literally can type a prompt in a variety of solutions that are publicly available and create a movie about your data. Now, I haven't seen any examples of that yet, but I'm sure it's coming. So, we really are in an exciting time in terms of how we can broaden the use cases and the accessibility and the impact of data, both visually and in terms of speed and efficiency. And that's just very cool. So fundamentally, as you're accessing looking at each of these solutions and trying to assess which is best, it's going to come down to kind of the same things that we always come down to: scalability and performance. What are those KPIs for you? Support and extensibility. If you run into some issue at 2:00 in the morning when you're trying to get a report on the CEO's desk the next morning, how are you going to get to the right solutions? How does this plug into other things? What is security, privacy, governance? That's also going to be a moving goal because different countries are prioritizing these things in different ways. So you have to make sure that you're being cognizant of that. How does this fit into an Insight suite? So if you're using a external analytics solution, does it plug into your data collection solution? How easy is that from a process standpoint? Make sure that you're building the stack, the interconnectivity of different solutions that are ideal for your needs. Are you looking for added security of on-premise where you're downloading things onto your own servers or your own PCs versus cloud solutions? The vast majority of these things are going to be cloud solutions, but for some folks, that's an issue. So recognize that. And then finally, just take the big picture and then drill down into what's important. So these technologies do touch everyone. Certainly, they're going to touch everybody in your enterprise. There is tons of data that is available. It's the golden age of finding data. But what's good data versus bad data? What's useful data versus distraction? The organizations are becoming more and more data-centric overall at an infrastructure level. That is one of the transformative impacts of AI. What's your perspective on who gets access to what? So are there permissions that you can put in place? Maybe everybody doesn't, or every organization doesn't want full democratization of data access. There may be roles where it's irrelevant. And think about that big picture when we were in this new kind of pioneering wild, wild west. There are implications for the organization, and make sure that your partners are helping you through that, because that's kind of their job, is to think about those technical components and being a resource for you. So that's it for me. Actually went a little bit longer than I meant to. Hope this is useful. Now you're going to get some really great presentations from folks that are leading the charge in staying abreast of this rapidly developing future and giving you the tools that you need as you explore this topic. That's it. I'll see you at the next one. Thanks. Bye-bye.